we would see teachers or even administrators, oh, that's not my job. That is the phrase that I hate the most. And so those things are the things that my family built in me. If it's in front of you, that's your job. Do it right now. I would have known in junior high, there were programs that would have got me ready to be an electrician. I wouldn't have ended up here. But in my family, nobody had a job. Everybody's living off the system, all these bad environment situations that happen all across the country that we're trying to bring people out of. They didn't know CTE existed. They didn't know that we could do something like this. I may not be the smartest or have everything figured out, but I can outwork you. And so that has helped me here. People comment because my job is forward facing, but I love to be in the grind with our people. Like, hey, let's figure this out. Let me help you, write that up. Let me help you do something. I just want to work with people.
You are listening to the Global CTE Podcast with your host, Sylvester Chisholm.
Welcome, my friend, to another episode of the Global CTE Podcast. I am your host, Sylvester Chisholm. This is the place where I interview the best, the brightest, the movers, the shakers, and the innovators. Today is no different, and we are in for a truly special treat. I have my good friend, Brent Haken, the State Director of the Oklahoma Department of CTE. Now, let me tell you a little about Brent. Brent leads at the OKC Department of CTE, which is one of the most nationally recognized career tech systems in the country. Previously, Brent served as the superintendent of Morrison Public Schools and has worked as an agricultural education teacher, principal, and district leader across multiple roles in Oklahoma. That breadth of experience gives him a unique perspective on how CTE connects classrooms to real workforce opportunity across an entire state. Brent, welcome to the podcast, sir.
Well, thanks so much. Glad to be on here. My favorite thing to talk about is CTE. So I'm excited to really just kind of be a spokesman for what the men and women in our state are doing. So I think the conversation is going to be great, and hopefully, people will hear this and maybe get some focus of what Oklahoma's doing, and then they'll reach out so I can learn from them. So thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I think CTE is also one of my favorite things to talk about, obviously, which is why we're here today. People who are in our space, they know the work that you all are leading. It is a place of inspiration and a place of best practices. Look how things are done, can be done, and what's coming next. Before we get into breaking down that Oklahoma model, tell me, what's your origin story? How do you end up here as the state director?
Yeah, man, I don't know how I end up here, but I'll tell you kind of the path that it took. Still wonder 3 years into this job, how did Brent Haken end up as the director of CareerTech? When I left my previous job, I had told I was superintendent there, and I told my encumbrance clerk, she said, you gotta go. I was debating on whether to apply or not, or whether to go. And she said, that's been your dream job you've been talking about. I love CTE, and I think that starts from kind of my upbringing. I'm a farm and ranch kid, just raised down the road here from Stillwater, where our office is, and so grew up actually farming, but then custom wheat harvest is my family's business. So we traveled the country in the summers, running combines, bringing people's grain in off the fields, and making sure that we could serve other people. And so I grew up in ag and in showing and giving speeches and things like that was just part of what you do because you're an FFA member. And so 4-H to FFA, that got me really exposed to what CTE is in Oklahoma. I had great parents that pushed me to try different things and be involved. But what really did it for me, all those experiences, growing up helped shape us and give us perception. But I enrolled at Oklahoma State University thinking I'm going to go back to the farm and I'm going to run a farm myself. And while I was there, I was about a year in, and I got asked to work alumni leadership camp for FFA, and took that opportunity and really realized that while I'm there working with small groups of students, man, what I want to do is teach. I love working with students and passionate about agriculture and passionate about education. They just link up so well. And so that was a really eye-opening time for me that, gosh, this is what I'm supposed to do. And so I've been blessed. My wife, high school sweetheart, she grew up in CTE world also. We showed together and grew up together, and now we're getting to raise our kids in it. I started teaching ag, and I loved it, man. But I actually had principals that didn't get it. I had a junior high and a high school principal. They just did not get the CTE world. They were like, this doesn't make any sense, and didn't understand how to evaluate us. And I got a little bit frustrated. So I decided, like, I'm going to go get my master's. We can do better than this. I can be a building principal, and we can lead this, and we can really show my school what CTE can do for every student, because there's a program for every student. And so got pretty passionate then. Actually had our first child and moved to another school that was back closer to home so I could have free babysitting for the wife and I, which makes a big difference when you're a teacher. And had a great experience there, finished up my master's, did my internship, and then we had our second child, and then the opportunity came where I could move to a school nearby where I grew up, in a small school, and I did that. Fantastic job. Again, I've loved every job I've had. Within 2 years there, I became an administrator, started out in elementary school as an assistant principal, special ed director, and really was the best experience for me to understand how does the whole education system work here. Loved it, been blessed all the way, had good people that poured into me, got to be a high school principal after that, then a superintendent, and we got to really focus in on what are the outcomes we want students to have. And so got involved in policy and in trying to make some changes to grad requirements and trying to say, hey, we can do school different. Moved our school into an opportunity to be a blue ribbon school, get national recognition. Very excited about my little school there, and my kids are still there. Got the opportunity to interview for this job, and I told them, I said, they're not going to pick somebody that doesn't have a PhD, and they're not going to pick somebody that's 37 years old to run the state, Oklahoma CareerTech. It's a big deal. It's known all over the world of what CareerTech is, and lucky to get the job and happy to be here. Love what we're doing. And so that's kind of the story that built me. Really just want to make a difference. And I can go do a lot of jobs, but this job felt like I can make the biggest difference here.
I love it. As a young leader, like what you're saying, for a position that carries so much weight and depth, I have a follow-up question. I'm going back to the ranch here for a minute. Okay. What is top leadership lesson or word of wisdom from parent, grandparent that was given to young Brent that carries with you today?
Yeah, and it's really not just one nugget or one word, but man, the work ethic was the biggest thing that helped me. And whether it was grandparents, I had a grandpa that was a VICA teacher, and I didn't even know what that was at the time. He was teaching industrial arts and building houses, but my weekends and spring breaks and things like that were ripping carpet out of rent houses that he built in the summers with the students that he was teaching. Or I was on spring break with my grandmother that was farm and ranch. My grandpa on my dad's side died early, but we were out walking pastures, cutting cedar trees with little lopping shears. And so it just didn't stop. And one thing I figured out through my competitive nature, whether I was playing sports or in FFA, and then when I got to be a teacher and I was taking kids to competitions, I may not be the smartest or have everything figured out, but I can outwork you. And so that has helped me here. People comment because my job is forward facing, but I love to be in the grind with our people. Like, hey, let's figure this out. Let me help you, write that up. Let me help you do something. I just want to work with people. And I think that's the difference that I take to my leadership style. A lot of people get to their dream job like I have now, and they're like, man, I'm here. I can be the face, but I don't care to be the face. I would rather somebody else do that. I just want to work with our people because they are making a difference. And so that work ethic from Dad, we would come home from, a lot of people think, it's difficulties that or pressures that parents are putting on you. But I felt privileged that when I got off the school bus, or our school bus used to drop us off wherever Dad was working, and you go work with him after school, or you get home from the game and like, hey, Dad would ask you to go take a shift on the tractor while he came home and got a little bit of rest because we were running around the clock sometimes. And that's just a great upbringing to, hey, the work doesn't stop and everybody pulls their weight. Mom helps out just as much as Dad, and brother and sister help out. Everybody does a job, and it doesn't matter what job it is. And so I'm pretty privileged to have that kind of upbringing. I didn't see that in every school. we would see teachers or even administrators, oh, that's not my job. That is the phrase that I hate the most. And so those things are the things that my family built in me. If it's in front of you, that's your job. Do it right now. Yeah.
I love it, man. Man, thank you for sharing that story. I knew we could spend the whole episode talking about those lessons, but I think that's so powerful, like those intangibles, or those, really you're kind of tapping into like those durable skills of like work ethic, having some grit around the things that are important. And it's not about passing the buck, but like, how can you lean in and try to really build out a system?
Yeah. It's, you learn quick that it's okay to fail when you got to tear the fence back down and start again. Like, okay. Like, it's just going to have to be done right, I guess. I'm like,
I love how you said you like to keep people at the center of the work. Salute to your communications team and the way you all present CTE across the state. I really enjoy reading your director's memos. And in the March 16th, 2026 director's memo, you described the Oklahoma Department of CTE as the house that Oklahoma built for workforce development. Can you break that down? What does that mean in practice? And how is the Oklahoma CareerTech system designed differently from what we may see in other states?
Oh man, that's a great question. And I forgot that was in there. That actually was something I just said off the cuff while I was driving on a phone call. And then we came back and I've got it still sketched on my whiteboard here beside me, because I started thinking about what makes us different and unique. And we serve differently than a lot of CTE agencies or departments within agencies across the state do. In Oklahoma in the late 60s realized we need something different. We don't just need higher education. We need it. It's valuable. We don't just need K-12 education. We need that. It's valuable too. But we've got to have something that's unique, that's really focused on our businesses here and how do we support them. And so they built out this system of Oklahoma CareerTech that is very different than most people. First off, we have a state agency. A lot of people don't have a state agency just for CTE. There's not very many of us left that do that. Secondly, they said, hey, we need to give them authority to oversee schools that are post-secondary in nature, but serve both high school students and adults, like concurrent before concurrent was a term, but where they're working toward a certificate to get them ready for the job. And so that's where it all started. And so Oklahoma started building this house. And I picture, the foundation is our great programs in CTE that are in high schools. The ag programs like I was a part of, or the FACS programs, used to be home economics and T&I. Those are the three that really built Oklahoma, built most of the country. That's our foundation and that high school experience. Well, now we're going to do something different. And that roof, what we're trying to get to is workforce development, business attainment, getting to the job. And so we started putting pillars in place in Oklahoma. And one of those pillars is full-time training that's post-secondary in nature, I just talked about. Another one of those pillars is going to be adult education and making sure that people that don't have a high school diploma can get a high school diploma. They can do that through our centers to make sure that we're standing up the pillars of what this is. And we just started adding to that, skill center education in the prisons, or whether that's short-term training that we started adding really quickly after that post-secondary training was built. That's, hey, the business needs new automated welding training. Okay, let's do that. We can do that in 40 hours. Send all your employees to us. We'll get it done, and then they'll go back to you. So we built out thousands. Actually, last year it was about 300,000 hours of short-term training for businesses, over 10,000 businesses in Oklahoma, that we don't need to run this through the HLC. We don't need to run this through NSICI. We don't need to run it through anybody. Let's do it because Oklahoma's need it, and because your school district was formed to do that. And so we started building a house, a brick at a time, of how can we do this different? And it's really withstood the last, we've changed that really the last 60 years. 1968 was the big push. And so we've slowly been building. We're still building today.
Yeah, no, man, that's powerful. And I appreciate just the continuity of it when you explain it that way from the house, and how everyone is involved. When you think about that ultimate outcome of, preparing your students and your adults to operate within those Oklahoma businesses and companies and organizations, like, how does CTE stay aligned with industry at that level, like across the state?
Yeah. Industry's begging for it. Industry, you don't have to stay alive. You got to stay vibrant enough and willing enough to stay out in front. That's the challenge. Is there's such a demand right now. Business and industry is craving individuals that, like we talked about in my origin story, have a little bit of grit, have durable skills, that show up on time, that do what they say they're going to do. And CTE builds that. Academic content alone cannot do that. I watched that as a principal. I watched it as a teacher. I can teach you algebra all day long. You could be great at that. And then you could be our valedictorian and flunk out of college because you don't have any grit. There is a lot of intelligent people that have never put application to work. And so until you put application in place, kids aren't going to develop into good workers. And so the outcome, we try to make success this beautiful picture of, every ideal dream coming true. And I hate that. I shouldn't say I hate, but I don't like that thought of, gosh, you got to have your dream and get your dream. I have a vision for what your life can really look like. Okay. And for me, maybe different than Sally right beside me in class, but our vision of success may be different, but it's attainable. It has to be something that's realistic, and businesses need that, and entrepreneurs need that, and CTE is how you get that. You don't get that any other way. And that's why I'm so focused on, we've got to get CTE in front of everybody at some point in their educational journey. If not, they're going to come back to us. And we see that all the time. They're coming back as adults, getting retrained, because if they don't have problem solving skills, if they don't have creativity, if they don't have those things, you're not going to be successful in today's environment. It is changing too fast, whether it's manufacturing or whether it's flying an aircraft or whether you're running your own business. Your world's changing fast, and you've got to be adaptable. You've got to be resilient. You've got to be willing to fail. Those things have to exist. And the way you do that is what we've built in CTE. And it takes everything from academic content to CTSO. And that's why the business and industry world, they're saying this is the key to get people ready for us. In reality, everyone needs a paycheck. We got to get paid some way so I can provide for my family, so we can enjoy the life that we have here. We only have a short while, and we help get people where they need to be.
Well said. Well said. I love how you referenced getting CTE in front of everyone. And I know it's important to you to start that conversation and exposure as early as possible. Talk to me about some of the work you all are doing with early exposure with CTE programs.
Yeah, it's we're far from done, Sylvester. We've got a lot of work to do. But at some point in their journey, they've got to be exposed. And you're spot on. We're trying to do that younger and younger. We've really been focused in on a fifth grade time span for career exposure and awareness. That's younger for us than what we've typically done. And so what we're making sure happens now is that STEM is not just its own thing. We hear that a lot, but STEM is a part of all that we do in CTE. So giving teachers the tools to have lessons that tie to academic skills that they have to learn, because every teacher in our state and across the nation has standards they've got to get to, for whether it's post or whether it's end of the year assessments, or if it's benchmark testing or whatever. I got to get to these standards. That's what I get evaluated on. That's what I got to make sure I'm progressing. So how do we build that into CTE? And so we've been really focused on not only showing students what it is, but training teachers. Bring them to professional development and say, hey, if you want to do this science lesson, you want to do this math content, you want reading content, here's some projects in CTE that it could help you get that across to your students, and they really latch onto it. And so we've done a variety of things. First off, we're putting K-12 programs and improving programs and paying for programs up to fifth grade. And we're doing that through our STEM division here, that we're actually going to turn to more of a tech ed division, go back in time to what tech ed was. We're also doing that through family consumer science. We're doing that through BMIT, several of our divisions reaching down and exposing more students. But we're also doing business partnerships where we bring teachers in for training. And then probably one of the biggest key changes we've made is we have a team now of career counselors that go across the state every day and meet with school administrators and counselors to talk about the power of CTE in their school and what resources we have available. So the online profiles and lessons and things like that we have available, we are now working out into the system. We got into this environment, especially post-COVID, where we thought everything had to be virtual. Virtual is a great tool, but it doesn't solve all of our problems. So we've got to get back to hands-on. And so that's why we put a team together now of 5 individuals that's their job. The second big key that we have done is create exploratory programs from our post-secondary institutions. So our technology centers, most people would think of them like community colleges. They're a little bit different, but only focused on CTE. They are putting in embedded programs in schools where they walk them through the different programs that they have in their district. So if they have 18 different program areas at that post-secondary institution, that tech center, Central Tech or High Plains Tech, if whatever they've got, they're coming into the sending schools and walking junior high students through 4 weeks of this program, 4 weeks of this program, 4 weeks of this program, to show students what this really is and what jobs do you go to after. We've noticed in Oklahoma, I don't know what the national statistics would be or what it's like for everybody's state, 34% of every graduating class from high school goes to college. Okay. So if only 34% is going to a college, we need to reach a lot more people with our other institutions. So we're reaching about 32% now through our training institutions that are post-secondary. That number is continuing to climb very rapidly. The bigger problem is only half of those 34% ever graduate with a degree. So they're going to need to come back and get some sort of training so that they're ready for a real job. We have a lot of people that are shifting from degree focus to skill attainment, making sure I get credentials. We see that everywhere. So it's a really great time to be focused on what people need when they need it. We are education when you need it for what you need it for. And so showing students that in junior high will save us a lot of time investment for the student and dollar investment for the state to make sure we get people where they need to be.
Yeah, no, that's so important, so powerful, and presenting career tech education opportunities as opportunities for power, opportunities for leadership, opportunities for economic upward mobility, and like those stats, like you can see it right there. I talk to my mom about this all the time. And I'll send you. I had her on the podcast as my
Awesome.
first one for the year. So yeah. My mom, as a single parent, put 2 kids through college as a professional cosmetologist. Like she knew what she wanted to. She knew that was her calling in the 8th grade. However, the curation of that skill set was not as clear during that time, for her to say like, oh, this is what you want to be. Okay, that's great. Let's figure out how do we teach science, chemistry through color formulation and, like marketing and business and all of those things that we have available today. But still in that regard, like you're talking about, this woman becomes a business owner from a CTE pathway and creates a great life for herself and for her children. It's like those are the success stories I think we need to lift up more as we present this stuff.
You're spot on. The success that students can have at any phase. I love watching students that come directly from a high school or got some post-secondary training while in high school. But some of the most powerful ones are the ones that came from, benefit focused households where I'm living off of government benefits to get by, but then they found a CTE program and it pulled them out of that and made generational change. Gosh, it's so powerful. I always wish it's like our prison training. Like I tell people, I wish it didn't exist. I wish we reached everybody on the front side, but we're not. So we're going to have to continue to follow up and make sure that people find their pathway. But there's so many good jobs. It's an endless opportunity of income potential out there. You just got to figure out what you want to do. There's an awesome story of an individual here in Oklahoma that owns one of the biggest pipeline installation companies in Oklahoma. And it's big business. Well, he started out in a welding program in Western Oklahoma because he thought he could earn enough money if he was a welder to buy a dirt bike as a kid. And then he realized, hey, wait, I'm good at this. He had a single mom household and was a great story. And I've used that story over. Like, this guy is a multimillionaire now. And it started out I need to get in this welding program so I can get a job in the evenings and I can buy me a dirt bike. So the stories are endless of the people taking these opportunities, and all education has those stories, but the time is now that we focus in on what skills do you really need to go to work. Don't waste your time with things that you don't need. Don't waste investment on things that aren't going to be a return for you. And we've got to show students what those, and really we got to show parents what those look like, and that may be something we're not doing well enough.
Yeah, I think, first of all, is it okay to say that gentleman's name? Who you're?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Marcus is his name. I haven't asked him if I can share it. So Marcus is our guy. I better get permission before I share his last name.
Yeah, don't do that. But he built from a welding, but the storyline from our welding program created the founding of one of the largest pipeline companies across the state of Oklahoma. For me, it's how do you get those stories in front of, like you're saying, the parents and the students so they can see what the highest versions of success look like from CTE pathways. And so that is not, it's like, we may be thinking about like, okay, how do we get you into the entry level program? How do we get you the credential that gets you the job? But what is the larger opportunity that is available if you so choose to, be persistent and go after it. And I like how you said that, because the parents is, as parents, it's our job to keep our kids safe. And so we only know what we've been exposed to, whether that's from a neighbor, family members, people from place of worship. So we're thinking certain careers, and it may not be connected to our students' interest.
That's right. Yeah, we have a significant problem in the education world that we don't know enough careers to expose them. What I mean by that is I noticed it when I became a principal more than when I was a teacher. But overseeing a high school, I realized our teachers are the biggest influencer on the kids right now, maybe even more so than parents in some cases. And they don't know anything but teaching. They went to more school and came back to a school. Counselors are the same way. It's not their fault. They're awesome people and they're highly motivated to make a difference with students, but they don't know anything else other than maybe what their parents did or their spouse does. But we started changing that in our high school through doing career fairs a little bit different, where we pulled in those same type of thoughts that you have, like pulling these in it, but we focused on blue collar jobs that are real in our area. Not as many doctors, not as many lawyers. Very few of you are going to go do that. If you do, you probably already know about that career field. The kid that's going to Harvard, I'm not making as much a difference to them. I hope that I'm influencing, but the kid that doesn't know what they want to do, has no idea, I've got to reach them. So we started bringing in most of what our actual community had, farmers and welders and plumbers and electricians. And it started making a real difference to those kids, how they studied in school, how they paid attention, that, hey, that's a real job I could, and it pays over $100,000. Did you know that? I'm like, yeah, I did. And so we did that. But then the second thing that we did, I cut out all that, not all of it, but most of that junk professional development that we all do for our 5 days in every school, where you come and you have your meeting and you talk about things that are going to go on. And I said, hey, 2 of these days are going to be dedicated to you going and visiting a trade school. And then one of those is going to be dedicated to you going and visiting another school. And so we took days off when we should have been in session. And it was the most impactful thing that I saw as a principal is, hey, everybody's normally out these days. We're going to go to the school those days. We're going to take 2 days out when people are not here. And you're going to go visit Meridian Technology Center all day long, see every program, see what they do. And it opened everybody's eyes. They're like, I had no idea. And they had no idea because that wasn't their journey, which is fine. But they need to know what journeys are out there for every kid. And so it changed our dynamics, where we were sending about 20% of our juniors and seniors to Meridian Technology Center to 45% in 2 years. It changed the dynamics of students wanting to actually pay attention to what they're studying and what courses they're taking in high school. It shifted everything to start seeing that there is an end point to this. School's not meaningless. It is valuable. And that's what we've screwed up. We got away from creativity in the 80s and 90s in America in when everybody else was trying to catch up with us. And we took everything the opposite way to standardize and cookie cutter approach everything. And we've got to get back out of that. And it's possible right now.
Yeah, very well said. I appreciate how the layered approach to exposure. Yes, students, what you see you want to be, but then also for our educators and leaders across school systems, for them to expand their breadth of opportunity that they're familiar with. So that's wonderful. I appreciate the integration. And I told you this in one of our previous conversations about when I think about CTE integration from the top all the way down, from the governor's office, the state level, all the way to the parents and the students. In South Dakota is one of the other models that I've seen. I was there. They invited me to keynote their summer CTE conference, and I was just blown away by the way everyone worked together and how CTE was lifted up from the 4-year college to the 2-year to the community college to the students at the high school to the CTE schools across different areas to the parents to the administrators. Everyone was connected. CTE integration is important to you, and you all do it well across Oklahoma. Talk to me about CTE integration at all.
Yeah, that's that may be the key. And I think I need to go see South Dakota as well and see what we can learn. So in Oklahoma, 151,000 students are in integrated programs in high schools, and another 22,000 are in post-secondary training that are high school students. And so it's really important to us to articulate that credit to the high school student. And now we're going the opposite way, which I'm so excited about. We're moving back up now where they're able to articulate credit that they're getting from their post-secondary institutions in CTE to a full-blown university track. And so we took some great examples of what was happening in other parts of the country. And so like nursing, we have health sciences programs that are awesome. And they start with high school students, work toward an adult, and now an adult that completes one of those programs and passes their NCLEX exam gets 25 credit hours to go to college. And so it's a way that we make sure we're all aligned. What we often think that, gosh, we just need to make it easier for a student to access advanced education. That's not necessarily true. The barriers we always say is it might be money, or it might be ability to cope with real life and while they're doing it. That's not necessarily the case. What is the real key to getting your population to invest in and take the time to get more education is building them a ladder to every different place that they need to be. And you've got to continue to quit skipping rungs, making sure that everybody can make that step. Some people's legs are shorter than others. And so as we integrate from the high school, so you expose, you integrate at the high school, make sure that this articulates into the post-secondary at a CTE center, and then that articulates to a degree program. Now you see more people climbing on up the ladder because they can do it. When you have big jumps for people, they miss that opportunity. Yeah. And so integration is really the key to making sure that a certificate has value. And that's the way that we're doing it now. In our state, we're using certification to quantify or to qualify what should count. And so that now is your key to integrate to the university level as you move toward an applied science degree. So the integration has to be full scale. We did a really good job at the junior high school level, and now we're just now picking up on how do we do this for the rest of their life. And the cool part is we're also integrating so much now into different businesses themselves. So we have standing partnerships with businesses where we are a part of their normal operation. Like, hey, once you get to this level, then you go back to a CTE center and you get some more training, and then you're ready for the next level. So integration can't stop with only education. It has to enter the workforce also. We try to make sure that we are a standing partner with businesses, not just hey, we train people for you and you get them from us. That won't work.
That's an interesting insight. Can you give an example or talk a little more depth about that?
Absolutely. So many of our construction companies, but especially B&H Construction, for instance, we will train them students that can start positions. So they may be polyfusion welders. And so they go to work in the polyfusion field, burying poly pipe and putting that together. And then once they get to a certain level, hey, we need them to train to be excavator operators. Then they can come back to us in a short-term capacity and we can train them to be excavator operators. So heavy machinery operation works well. So that's just one example, but it happens in a lot of different fields. Medical would probably be the best example, where we train a ton of CNAs and phlebotomists and things like that that'll go out into work, especially after high school. And then later they'll come back and say, hey, I want to articulate that toward an LPN. And so then they come back to us and we work on LPN. We're now doing standing partnerships, especially in healthcare. We're doing them on all sectors, but healthcare with apprentices for high school students into the medical field. So they'll start out in a position that they apprentice for, and then later they will be able to come back. And we have partnerships with SSM and Mercy Hospital and all these places where let's get people in the door in great jobs, and then they will come back to us and we'll do more short-term training for them. And so those are just some of the examples of how we're making that work. But we're if it's at Francis Tuttle Technology Center, or if it's at Metro Technology Center, or if it's at Tulsa Tech, that business knows, hey, we have a standing partnership. They're going to offer these short-term training programs for us, for the employees that we hire. That the jobs are evolving, like I mentioned earlier, and they have to have that integration into their workplace, or they won't know what to do and they won't be able to be successful. We also integrate into our Department of Commerce with a couple of different programs that are unique. One of them is called TIP, which is the Training and Partnership Program, where when a business is coming to Oklahoma and you want to make Oklahoma your home, we did this with Hitachi, we did this with Goodyear, that you get free training for your initial hiring of employees. So if you're going to hire 800 employees when you come in here, we're going to offer you, 40 hours each worth of training for free, and make sure that we get people started on the right track. We do that, and it starts to build that integration. So Goodyear now is integrated within one of our technology centers, where they have a building where we are training just for the Goodyear plant. And so it's really cool to see that integration work. It can happen more often than what businesses realize. We also integrate incubators in many of our technology centers, where if you want to be a startup and you want to start entrepreneurship, then you can come and learn from our people and get your business going. And then we're embedded for you if you need training for employees later. So really cool how we can follow them all the way through. But it's because we're built off of, those centers are built off of a property tax. So that's what funds part of their funding. Not all of it, but a part of their funding, so that every business knows that if we're successful, we can use this school to continue to train for us. So it works out really, really great.
That's a viral system of economic impact.
I need to find out how to put data on it, because when you see we have 29 different centers across the state, and you look at them on a map, and those are the areas of the state that are thriving economically too. And I'm like, those tech centers are making that happen. I just need to figure out how to collect the data on that, because it's so obvious just to pull the map up and look. Whereas Oklahoma City Metro, or if it's Woodward that's out there by the Panhandle, or if it's Durant that's down in southern Oklahoma, right there around that tech center, there's just this ripple effect of economic growth around it. And we're still a fairly young system. Didn't really get operational until the late 70s. We just started in like 1968, the first one started, but you're really not seeing people out of there until 70, 71. And so we're a pretty new system when it comes to education, and it is awesome what it's doing.
Yeah, no, I love how you explained that, how they can come back and get more short-term training that supports promotion, wage increase, salary increase, and advancement in the company, and fills those needs of the company at the same time. And then even thinking about how you're leveraging CTE to bring in new companies to the state by offering that free training for their employees, which is good for, folks, across cities in Oklahoma. So that's really powerful.
That's why I say this is the house that Oklahoma built. because it's really different than anyone else. I mean, we built something that's like, let's make something work for us. And my chief of staff, he has this saying about our technology centers when we're talking to people about the value. And he says, well, you can have the school that people give you, or you can have the school that you want. You decide if you want to invest.
Very well said. We talked about early exposure. We talked about the work you're doing, apprenticeships with young folks in high school, middle school. And then now you just kind of touched on the adult, the adult learning part. But something that I also thought was unique is the work you're doing for incarcerated individuals and with your skill centers. So talk to me about your skill centers and pathways to opportunities there.
Everybody loves to talk about the skill centers. I'm no different. You talk about stories of success. It's really, really cool. And I'll explain it all, but I think one of the bridges that helps people understand why my passion for early investment, young people knowing what CTE is. I was at Mabel Bassett, one of our skill centers facilities. It's a prison here in Oklahoma. It's female only, and we teach plumbing, electrical, and HVAC in that prison. And I was talking to all these ladies that are getting training, and I said, well, what happened so you ended up here? You know, how did you end up incarcerated here? And one of them shared a story that everyone else echoed, said, if I would have known in junior high that there were programs that would have got me ready to be an electrician, I wouldn't have ended up here. But in my family, nobody had a job. Everybody's living off the system, all these bad environment situations that happen all across the country that we're trying to bring people out of. They didn't know CTE existed. They didn't know that we could do something like this. And so we have built a system in Oklahoma for skill centers that are right now at 17 different locations. We're building a new location right now in partnership with the Department of Corrections, where as an inmate comes or as they're in their stay, they can go through what we call a process of sorting to know what are your skills, what are your interests, and we expose them to what everything looks like that we train for. And they train some for degrees, but we're the biggest training that happens in Oklahoma. Once they figure out where their interest, then they're moved to the yards where these programs exist. It may be welding. It may be, we have auto body. We have transmission shop. So we learn some auto mechanics. We have, like I mentioned, electrical, plumbing, and HVAC. We're looking at other programs that we may add in as well. But we train these individuals within a year of release. That's the key. You train too early when they first get there and they got a 5-year sentence, it's a waste. You just wasted state dollars on that. But if you will start training within a year of release, and you put them through career readiness skills at the same time, resume building, how to be a good employee, those things, along with their training that they're getting in an in-depth field that is the same as we would do in our post-secondary institutions. Then when they get released and the transition coordinator grabs a hold of them, tells them how they can help them, gets them set up with their interview, gets them hired, helps them get their work boots, whatever they need, and gets them to day one of that job. That's how you change a life that has been incarcerated, by getting them on a totally different path. So we do that for about 2,000 inmates a year that we offer up training and give them either short-term, depending on how long their sentence is, or long-term would be the key within a year of release. And we get them out and we get them in jobs, and they are very productive citizens. We have companies now that's their preferred hire, that we want to hire people from the prisons. They're the most loyal employees. They're the most dedicated. They invest back in us because we invest in them. It's awesome. Whether it's Fry Miller Trucking or whether it's B&H Construction that's hiring directly from the yards, they are huge partners for success for these individuals, and it has gone really, really well. Like I said, we're growing and adding another site right now, but you really work hand in hand. If we do more on the front side, we have less individuals that we have to invest in the prisons. It is beautiful training that is life changing, but it ought to happen younger. We need to do that younger.
Do they receive a credential or some sort for the work, so that is
everything that we do, we tie that to certifications.
Okay.
And industry certifications are important. If it's welding, you'll need a G6 certification. You may have to test when you get to a job also, but that person that's willing to give you a shot, they want to see that you had some attainment level. And so we also, what's unique about us, I'm glad you asked that, we have an assessment division within my agency. So when certifications don't exist in certain career fields, like mental health right now, we don't have a certification level for the individuals that work in mental health institutions. So we're building one and saying, this is the standard of care we expect people to have. And so the mental health people are telling us what to do. We have assessment specialists, so they're building that certification out. That way, when they leave us, they have something that says, no, I completed something rigorous, that's meaningful, that industry signed off is needed, and now I'm more employable. So everything that we do, whether it's in a prison or whether it's in a high school, it's got to have certification tied to it.
So Brent, that looks like we're developing a certification or credential. We go to the mental health professionals, alignment in terms of what you're looking for, what we respect and expect. And then now the student or the adult, they receive this credential that is endorsed by Oklahoma Department of CTE, and then industry recognizes that? Or is it also, it's your credential and then it's endorsed by the mental health state of?
I'm a both.
Okay,
so
how do you
that?
Go ahead.
So we want to have industry be this certification. So there's some that we don't, that are done nationally. ASC certification for mechanics, great certification. So how do you take that same idea and principle that the industry is who needs this, and then we build that for them? So with the mental health example, they are going to be the ones that design it. They're going to be the ones that stamp off on this thing, that it is their certificate of approval. We just built it for them. Then we train to those standards. We do the same thing for like cosmetology. This was a big issue you mentioned it earlier by your mom, big issue in Oklahoma. We have a cosmetology board. So the legislature was trying to set new standards, and they came to us and said, hey, CareerTech should do that because you train most individuals. And I told them, I said, I don't set the standard. We train to the standard. So my goal is that the industry tells us, what do you want them to be able to do? I'll get them there. If it's a new hydraulic certification that CASE wants for heavy equipment, you tell us what we want. We will help you build out how to test for that, but you're stamping off that it's your certificate, and we will get them ready. Our assessment division also builds out assessments for other states. We've helped do that before, so they could reach out to another state, could reach out to us, say, how do we do this? We do the driver's license testing for Oklahoma. We do some of the health testing for Arkansas. We have a division that is specialized in, you tell us what you want these kids to know, we'll build an assessment to that. And then some of it's live work, some of it's obviously over a computer, but we will build out the assessment that the industry says we need. So they are the key. They have to drive it.
So that, like that CASE example, so then it's CASE's credential.
Yep.
And you help.
And sometimes it's multiples that want to go together.
Yeah.
And they want to, hey, we need this like an ASC type certification, but sometimes it's individuals that want their own. And that's what's unique about us, that makes it more difficult. I may have a technology center in Southwest Oklahoma that's offering a different certificate for welding than the technology center in Bartlesville, because that company that hires in that area, this is what they need.
This is what they need.
Every state has tried to say, no, everyone needs to do the same. So we say, yes, they should have the same framework. There should be a lot of the same standards, but the certificate can be different for their industry and their region. And so while it has to have a certificate, we don't dictate that every welding program has to have this exact same one. Those schools need to have enough local autonomy that they know the industry in their area, and that company says, this is what I need. Because if the person can't go get a job with it, it was a useless certificate.
That makes so much sense, that it is like a localizing of the credential, because I'm doing the hiring. I know what I'm looking for. It may be different on the other side of the state, but I'm looking for people on this side of the state, and I'm working with the school system on this side of the state that we're most likely to pull people from. That makes Thank you for sharing that, because that's something
why
that
those are economic centers, is because my companies here are the ones that are helping fund the school. So they're the ones that need something. We get beat up sometimes because we have so many different industry recognized certificates, and they go through a process to make sure they have to be signed off by business and industry. They have to be signed off by the school. We have to make sure that they have value. But why would we limit the different certificates that are out there when people need these jobs, and that's what they're saying they need?
That's powerful. Thank you. That's a huge insight that you just broke down there. Thank you for sharing it. What's next, man? You're just kicking butt and taking names, making impact
I don't know that.
everywhere. What's next for Oklahoma CTE?
We're in growth mindset right now, and so we are a robust system. But I mentioned early on getting to everyone, so we set some pretty far-reaching goals, some things that are hard to get. We know that there are people that we're not getting in front of, but we have to make sure that quality is there as well as quantity. And so right now we've reached our goal. We had a 5-year goal to get to 150,000 high school students in integrated programs. We got to that goal 2 years early, so we're far reaching now. We're at about 47% of all high school students are going through a program, not just a course only. And so we're working on expanding that to get to 50% in the next 2 years. That's the real goal for high school. We are working to 40,000 students in post-secondary training. We're getting close. We were at 35 this year. We had been at 30 for about a decade, 30,000 students in post-secondary CTE. Over the last 3 years, we've grown 5,000 students enrolled in those full-time programs. And so that's our mindset right now, is growth. I think that Oklahoma needs it. I think that the country needs more people in our programs. We are recognizing in this time of AI that many jobs are changing or going away. And so we're trying to get in front of that with future-proof jobs. We all have to have careers. We need to make sure that we have something that's sustainable. And so as more companies lay off accountants, payroll specialists, all these jobs that have been great careers for people for decades, we need to make sure that we are ramping up what it takes to overcome that. And so what we're seeing is a robust need in electronics, mechatronics, advanced manufacturing. So we're working very diligently to make sure that we're adding programs that are future-proof, that people can go to work in and stay in those industries, even though the job changes a little bit. When a data center comes in, and there's several coming to Oklahoma, it's not more intellectual property that they need. They need an investment in people that are great at HVAC, people that are great at being an electrician, that are people that are great at facility maintenance, because that's what it takes to run those things. So the jobs are still there. They're just shifting. And so we're getting in front of that as fast as we can. That's the good news about our system. I don't have to wait on federal approval. I don't have to wait on any state approval other than ourselves. We can adapt programs really quick. So one of the things that I tell people as an example, in Oklahoma 5 years ago, we only had one Highline technician program. I've got 8 now. So it changes fast. There may come a point where we don't need them again. And that's okay. The same was true for like business and information technology programs. Every school had one. Now we're seeing them shrink because graphic design and things like that can be done by less people. And so we need to respond as a demand-focused education center. And so that's what our process is right now. How do we ramp up and ramp down what we need and do it in a way that people are successful at every corner?
Very well said. For anyone who's listening who wants to learn more about the work you all are leading, where would you direct them? Where should they go?
Man, you know what? Social media channels give you just a glimpse of what's going on. I like having conversations with people. We have a team here through my outreach director or through myself, or we want to visit. We hosted, I think, 6 or 7 different. Gosh, I got junior high kids myself, so the 6, 7's wearing me out. But we have, I think we did have 7 states last year that came and visited and sat down and talked. And we had legislators here. We had community leaders. I'd love to engage in more people. We also try to get out and go to other states so we can see what's going on. So they can reach out to me directly. My email is just real easy. It's brent.haken@careertech.ok. It's real easy. So make sure that people reach out to us. Our website, Oklahoma CareerTech, .gov. Sorry, we've changed to .gov. It's easy. So find us and reach out. We've got a lot of people here that want to invest in other states too. So I'd love to help.
Outstanding. Okay, final question for you, Brent. What is your vision for the future of career tech education?
Oh man, yeah. This is a question I love. The vision is we are going to see a dramatic shift in education, I think, in the country. In Oklahoma, it's happening where people are focused on the ROI. And so that sets itself up well for CTE, is how can people make sure that their education works for them. And so what I see us doing is we are going to be integrated more fully in junior highs and high schools where project-based learning is king. So that I'm excited about, where we can play a role in that. It doesn't do away with math teachers. It doesn't do away with English teachers. It helps them give tools to be successful. So I'm excited about that. I think there'll be a CTE lead in most every high school that helps with the integration. And then the biggest vision that I probably see is we'll see now shifts with Workforce Pell and with what we're doing on post-secondary side, where people are able to come to a trades training facility just like they would a typical college education, but they'll do it in shorter fashions. So they'll stay 6 months or a year and they'll get the training that they need. And then they will be able to keep that credit with them for their life if they ever need to build upon that. So I see education shifting to where more people are focused on credentialing instead of degrees. And I don't mean that in a negative aspect. I've got a couple degrees and I love them. I love what I was able to get, but I don't think that's the future. I think the future is people going through career and technology education so that they are ready for their jobs. So that's what the vision looks like. I believe we're going to get back to investing in students to make sure that what they're doing really matters for them.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you so much. CTE, the house that Oklahoma built for workforce development.
That's it, man.
This was a powerful episode. So many insights around apprenticeship, credentials, early exposure, CTE, integration, skill centers. Thank you for all the work that you are leading. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with our learning community. For everyone who's listening, don't be selfish. Share this with a friend or colleague who needs to hear all these great insights and gems that Brent shared with us today. Until the next episode, remember, you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Global CTE Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to be the first to know about future episodes.